Hello everyone, it's Jimmy here at O'Reilly's. Thought I'd make a little video having a chat about how I started out being a mobile mechanic. I had a few people ask me the same question. Other people were sort of saying, we're interested in how you started doing what you're doing and how it all started basically. So when I first learned how to be a mechanic, in my head I always thought to myself, this is never going to be me as a job, just because I didn't really like, getting my hands too dirty, and it was just a messy job. I used to look at, some of the guys I was working with, they were always just covered in grease and just not a nice look, basically. And I wanted to learn. I learned a lot of different trades as I was younger, and I wanted to just be good at sort of everything. I didn't want to rely on anyone to help me do anything. If I needed to, if I was doing DIY around the house or fixing my cars, I always wanted to learn and know how to do it myself. My sole purpose of learning how to be a mechanic was to be a car trader, which I was for, I don't know how long, maybe 10 years or so. I was doing car sales, so I'd go to car auctions and buy cars that needed to be repaired, bring them home, repair them, and then sell them on. The reason for me learning how to be a mechanic was I didn't want to spend the money having to take them into garages and spend lots of money, because then your profit's gone. You buy a car that cost you £1,800, suddenly you spent £1,000 on it, and now it costs you 2,800, and you can just about get about 2,400 back for it. So you've lost the money in the repairs, and something that you think could cost you maybe £100 or £200 could end up costing 1,200. So at least if I was doing the work myself, I had the time to spend on it. When you're selling cars, you have a lot of time in your hands. I used to have a dozen cars sitting outside my house ready for sale, and you could get 1 or 2 people a week coming to look at them. So in between that, you had a lot of time to kill on your hands. So I'd be looking for cars that, spares and repairs, something that needed fixing, and I'd get them in and play around with them. And the whole thing that started off about me being a mobile mechanic was I had a young lad who used to work with me, and I didn't actually need him to do anything. I was to do the stuff myself, like I said, and he'd call me and say, have you got anything I can do? I need some money, I'm short for rent, and have you got anything I can do, anything I can help you with, just to earn a few quid? And I'd get some stuff in. If it was hard stuff that I didn't like to do, like clutches and whatever, I'd say, look, I've got a clutch if you want to do it on this car. Yeah, and he'd come in and do it. And then I found it awkward because he had to try and come around the rear of to the garden to get to the shed and get the tools out. So what I ended up doing was, for 2 reasons, I thought, I'm going to just buy a cheap little small van. I think it was a Ford Fiesta commercial, so it was a car derived van. Put a toolbox in the back of it, a jack, and I used to go to the auctions with that. So if something needed, or go to pick up cars, or if something was for sale, Facebook Marketplace wasn't around that days, but usually it was Friday free ads, and Auto Trader, eBay, and there was a few local ones. I think it was Gumtree and Pre-Loved. You'd find stuff on there and go and have a look at them, and I'd bring my little diagnostic tool with me. It was only a cheap one, 100 quid-ish or something at the time. It was a launch, actually. My first tool was a launch. I don't remember what model it was. It was just a little square thing about that big, something similar to the CRP 129 now, about that big. I think I paid £220 for it. I think it was that, something like that. Obviously the first one I bought was something like 50 quid off of Amazon. And I'd go, I'd leave everything in the car, so if I needed to go somewhere, everything was ready. It was just a cheap little car. I think I paid £250 for it, and I'd use that to go and look at potential cars that I was going to buy, and then I'd leave that parked outside on the street. So when my mate or someone needed to do something, the car was there, the tools were in it. Use that to do that, and then it was actually his idea. He said to me, he used to call me up all the time, have you got anything I can do, you got any work for me? And I said, no, sorry, all of the cars I've got here, they were quite simple fixes, I've just done them all myself, and I haven't really got anything in, you know, I've got a dozen cars there I'm waiting to sell, and I'm not really looking for any more cars to go and buy at the minute. And he said to me, you know, it would be a good idea, like if I could use your van to go and repair some of my mates' cars. I said, well, if I'm making something from it, you can use the van to go and do that. He said, what about if we go 50-50 on, I use the van, I've got loads of people that I can do jobs for, but I just don't have, you know, because I would pick them up. He said, I don't have my own car and I don't have my own tools. So I said, okay, that's fair enough, we'll do that. And he used to go around with the van doing repairs when I wasn't using it. But then he got really unreliable. I think he started getting a lot of work, you know, from obviously what I was passing on to him from stuff, and then he started getting too unreliable from me to use him, because he got busy elsewhere. He then started getting unreliable. So I used to then jump in the van temporarily, just because, you know, some of my mates would say, I need something done, and I'd say, you know what, I'm not doing anything, I'll come and have a look. And it just went from there. I just suddenly started getting more and more people ask me to do stuff, and I thought, well, you know what, I've got a load of cars sitting there, I'm not doing anything else, I'll go and fit this alternator for this guy. Sorry, I've got my tea here. Go fit an alternator for that guy. And then I thought, you know what, I wasn't doing anything today, and I just earned 150 quid from doing that. So this is a good side, maybe a side to my business of selling cars, where when I've got quiet days, I haven't got any appointments booked for people to come and view a car, I could just put another advert out on the side of my website saying, you know, we do servicing and repairs, light servicing and repairs like brake pads, starter motors, alternators, service your car, all that sort of stuff. And I started getting a few jobs coming in, and suddenly I was just booked out. And I thought, you know what, I'm more busy doing this than I was doing the cars. You know, I was bored all the time when I was selling cars. I thought, yeah, this is what I'm gonna just do. I gave up with cars. You know, I've got 50 grand's worth of cars sitting outside, and they've been sat there for 2 weeks waiting for someone to come and buy one so I can make a £1,000 profit. And you just think, you know, I've spent 50 grand to make a grand profit, and it's been sat there for 2 or 3 weeks. It took me like 2 weeks to sell that car. I've made £1,000 from it, but it cost me 15 grand to buy it. When you think about it, it's not, you know, it's a lot of risk. I could have lost money, which happened a few times. I got cars, and at the time when I bought it, the prices was high, and suddenly you check the value of the car a week or two later, and they've dropped a couple of grand. And you sometimes end up having to take a loss on them. And I thought, you know what, I'm sick of having to fork out a lot of my money gambling to try and make profit on a car, when I could just go out and make a couple £100 every day doing just basic repairs on cars. And I went from there. I just gave up with the car selling and stuck to the side of selling cars completely. Then I bought a Ford Transit. Actually, what was it? No, the next van I bought up was a Vauxhall Combo, and then I went to a Ford Transit, and then I got 2 crafter vans. Then I had 3 crafter vans, 4 crafter vans. I had 4 crafter vans and the Transit running around, so in total I had 5 vans running around, 4 different lads working for me and myself. And then that got a bit stressful. It was always once or twice a week, 1 or 2 of these lads just wouldn't show up to work, and this guy had jobs to do, this guy had jobs to do. People were ringing me in my ear saying, you know, where's this guy? He's not here. And then it was just stressful, and I got so pissed off with it in the finish. I just said, you know what, I'm selling the vans. I'm going to leave one there with my own as someone who wants to come and do part-time stuff. I'll just leave that van there. But I ended up cashing the rest of them in, sold the vans up, and I sized back down the business, back down to just myself. And I've got 1 van there that sometimes, you know, a part-timer can come in and do bits and pieces for. I had a really good guy with me a couple of years ago, but he ended up going back to Ireland, and he was reliable. He was a good mechanic. He was everything that you needed. But of course, whatever the reasons were, he was looking for, you know, something a bit more. He wanted to make more money, and he went back to Ireland to try and do that. And that's how that went from there. So now I'm just back to myself. I've got the other van sitting there ready for someone else to come and jump in it if need be, but I just can't seem to find anyone suitable for that. So that's how I started to be a mobile mechanic. It was all a mistake. I mistakenly became a mobile mechanic. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I planned to do. And then, so this is how that was the story, how I accidentally became a mobile mechanic. And then I'll tell you how I accidentally became a DPF cleaner, or a DPF specialist, whatever you'd like to call it. In between some of the jobs I was doing, I'd done a couple of DPFs here and there, and suddenly word of mouth came around. I was in a town called Luton. Word of mouth came around, from a few garages and a few locals saying, I've heard that you fixed DPFs that some other guys couldn't do. And okay, yeah, well, let's do it. Get your car in and have a look at it. Yeah, and I've got it working for him. He's happy. And I just thought, I thought to myself, there's something here. I made good money from that. More money than you could make going out fitting a set of brake pads that, Gary down the road is offering to do for 20 quid. You could charge proper fees for cleaning a DPF. Anything that involved specialist tools or specialist diagnostic equipment, you could charge more money for. And I thought to myself, this is a great way to make more profit rather than trying to make 100 quid a day on brake changes. So I ended up doing that, swapping over to mainly just taking on DPF jobs. Obviously DPF jobs got more busy, so I'd have people calling me saying, I need a DPF cleaned, and then on the other line I'd have someone saying, I need some brake pads doing on my car today. Which one am I going to choose? Okay, I'll book the DPF one in. Sorry, I'm too busy for the brakes, because brakes and servicing, there's so many guys around locally that offer to do that sort of stuff for something like 20 to 40 quid, and it makes no sense. It's okay if you're just some bum who's sitting around at home and he's got a little toolbox that he paid 50 quid for, and he can go and make it 20 quid and he can go and buy whatever he wants to smoke with that. I think that's what most of those guys do. But when you're trying to raise a family, you're trying to pay for a property to live in, you're trying to pay for your kids, and you're trying to also, you're trying to run your household, keeping your wife and kids in a good environment to live. And working for that sort of rates, you're not going to do that. You need to be earning more money, and that was a good way for me to do that. So I accidentally then became a DPF specialist. Wasn't something that I planned. DPFs just became in as a couple of random jobs during the week, and suddenly I had people calling me saying, I'm this DPF guru, and I'm this DPF specialist, which I was never considered myself to be, but according to everybody, apparently I am. And that's how that went from there. So I accidentally became a mobile mechanic, and then I accidentally became a DPF specialist, and that's where I am now today. And where do I go from here? I'm at a crossroads in my life, I think, at the moment, and I don't know what to do. My dad came over here when I was younger, and we moved back to Ireland for a few years, and then when I was 12 or 13, I think, we moved back to England again. And my dad would get contracts in London, in Notting Hill and Camden, around those areas, and he would get contracts driving lorries, the big 20-ton tippers and stuff, and he was making good wages. So he told me, like, you could get, back in those days, he was making, I don't know what it was, but say, I don't know, £200 per load for tipping them off, where you couldn't make that kind of money anywhere else. You couldn't make half of that money. He said, in a day he could earn 5 times what he could earn anywhere else doing that, what he was doing at the time. And we ended up staying in England. It was supposed to be temporarily, but what happens next? One minute you're here 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, you don't know. So the last time I actually lived in Ireland was, I don't even think I was a teenager, 12 or something. But I'll go back, once a year to see family, and it's just, I don't know what to do from here. I don't know whether to try and get a garage or just continue mobile as I'm doing. It's less stress, I suppose, but it's easier to work if you've got a garage. But the thing is as well, you know, my dad at the moment is quite ill, so we can't just move back to Ireland if I wanted to, because he's not in the condition to move back. He's getting treatment here in England, so we can't just pack up and leave, basically. And if I get a garage here, you know, I'm kind of thinking, if I do get a garage, I don't want to just get a garage temporarily. If I get it, it's going to be like a permanent sort of thing. So I don't want to get a garage and then decide I want to go back home, because if I get a garage in England, I think that's probably going to be me. I mean, I'm getting on. My age is getting older. If I do get a garage in England, I think that'll be the end of the line for me. I'll just end up staying here. Ideally, you know, in my dream world, I would like to move somewhere hot, somewhere where the weather's nice, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, I can move to places like Spain with an EU passport. My dream was always to move to America, somewhere nice and warm in America, and do my thing over there. But it's getting your family to agree with that, and nobody else wants to do that. So I can either stay in England or move to Ireland, and that's where I am at the minute. So I'm at this crossroads. If I make this decision within the next year, it's going to probably calculate where I go for the rest of my life, to be honest. I'm coming up to 40 years of age, so once I do that, I don't think I'm gonna, you know, another few years down the line, I don't think I'm gonna be able to move anywhere else, basically. My kids are going to be getting older, and nobody is going to want to move anywhere. So it's just, I'm at the decision now: do I get a garage or do I just stay mobile? Or I don't know what to do. So that's basically the story of how I started as accidentally, whatever you call it, became a mobile mechanic, and then I accidentally became a DPF cleaner. And now, do I stay a mobile mechanic? Do I get a garage? Do I stay in England? Do I go to Ireland? Do I try and get an American visa? Or do I go over and buy myself a villa in Spain and try and do my work from there? I don't know. But we'll see what happens in the future, and I'll see you on one of the next videos.